All right, we'll kick off. Fantastic. All right, guys. So again, welcome. As I said earlier, my name's Alex, key accounts person up here in Queensland, and what we're talking about today is Creditwatch, but more specifically with our MYOB and Xero integrations. Before we go into MYOB and Xero specifically, as we always do, as Pat always does with his webinars, we just give a bit of an overview around Creditwatch's other services. So I can't say how many times we'll be talking to a business about one particular product, and we start talking about, say, our onboarding online application tool, and people are amazed or unaware of the other services that we do. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, as it pretty much plainly explains that on the slide there at the moment. But Creditwatch does offer a complete end-to-end service from a credit risk management perspective. So as I was saying earlier, everything from onboarding tools, so putting your paper-based application online, streamlining and automating that process as much as possible, to your assessment piece where you're doing your initial checks or compliance or due diligence, if you will, on potential businesses, so in the format of credit reports, trade references, etc., to more so of the management piece where we allow businesses to monitor their debtors as well, and that's kind of a key area of the organization, where we try to help businesses become more proactive rather than reactive with their credit risk management. And a really powerful way to do that is through the live alerts or the daily alerts. And then you've got our two other pieces here: analyze and automate. So especially at the moment, and I suppose a bit of a conversation of what we're talking about today is around that integration. Creditwatch does offer APIs to other platforms outside of MYOB and Xero, but for what we're talking about today, MYOB and Xero is the main focus. And then the other point there on analyze is Creditwatch offers a lot of other additional products outside of just your credit scores. So portfolio health checks, which is cleansing and appending information, more in-depth financial reporting, which particularly in this current climate and moving forward into 2022, we're seeing a lot of interest in, whereby we actually look at the financials of the business and run those reports for businesses. And then what we're talking about today, which is data logic or analytics, where we allow companies to essentially upload their payment information, their age trial balances, and Creditwatch will overlay our credit risk information on those businesses. And we'll talk about, I suppose, why we do that and how that's beneficial to certain companies, or to many companies. One other point here, just around more Creditwatch as a business. So tens of thousands of customers across the country, 90% of them use Creditwatch exclusively, which is quite rare in my experience. And the more kind of relevant one today is around the payment data. So at the moment, Creditwatch sits at about 10 million trade lines through MYOB and Xero integrations, and other businesses uploading or contributing their age trial balance. I'll also say as well, that's probably a little bit out of date. I think we're probably close to 12 million, excuse me, close to 12 million today, just with the number of customers who are wanting to integrate with us. So for today, as a bit of a light agenda, so we're all kind of on the same page, we'll obviously talk a lot about the MYOB and Xero integration, the reasons why you do it, the features and the benefits to both small businesses, but also other companies who perhaps haven't got either a MYOB or Xero accounting platform. We'll also jump into a demonstration of the system so you guys know what it's about, and there will be time for questions as well. We won't be able to get back to all the questions today, or any, unfortunately, just because we do have a kind of a hard stop at 30 minutes. But our customer success team or myself will make sure that we do get back to people as soon as possible. So you can ask questions, just so everybody knows. Do you have the ability to ask questions in the GoWebinar control panel? And we will also be sending out a recording of today's webinar to everyone that has registered as well. Before we kind of talk about specifically the benefits and the features of the MYOB and Xero integration, I just wanted to ask a quick question here to kind of understand which accounting package people use. So from my experience personally, and I suppose the wider business, we tend to find 90% of businesses, or small to medium businesses, sorry, will use either MYOB or Xero. Xero kind of sits between that 65 to 70%, MYOB 20 to 25, and then you've kind of got 10 to 20% or 10 to 15% of other businesses. So yeah, just be interesting to know. Okay, so we're kind of seeing that now. So 63, 65% for Xero, 20% for MYOB, and then the difference there, 20% for other platforms. That could be, whether it's an ERP or a Pronto or QuickBooks or something like that. So given that there's still a healthy chunk of businesses who do use other, worthwhile mentioning that whilst we do have only native integrations with MYOB and Xero at this current time, the development team is looking at broadening that, just because it does obviously is relevant to a lot of other businesses. All right, so looking at the integration with MYOB and Xero, so I think it's really important to mention that to be a CreditorWatch customer, you don't have to integrate with MYOB or Xero. It's not a mandatory procedure. I think that's very important for businesses who are potentially looking at integrating with us. As I said, it's not mandatory. So it kind of brings on to the question in terms of a question as to why businesses would do that. I talked about it earlier in regards to overlaying our credit risk information, and the data analysis is a key reason why businesses do that. So the ability for CreditorWatch to analyze your outstanding debtors and really compare them against the credit files is quite crucial. As I kind of mentioned earlier, with so many businesses who use MYOB and Xero being on that small to medium end, the reality is with these companies, I can kind of say from personal experience, you might tend to find that a lot of these people are wearing multiple hats. So for example, the accounts person might also be the office manager, or vice versa. The office manager might be dabbling in accounts, and the GM or the MD might also be working on sales, but he's also going to be chasing some of those bigger accounts to get paid as well. So the reason why that's important is because people wear multiple hats in these kinds of organizations. They're doing multiple things and they're time poor. So if we can kind of narrow their focus to those businesses that are high risk or a priority, then that saves them time. It can reduce their day sales outstanding, which is a key KPI, or is a KPI for majority of businesses in the account or the credit function. And it creates a lot of value to these businesses on a day-to-day. So personally, I see that as a big advantage for why businesses do choose to use the MYOB with Xero integration. The second one there is the name match. So what I can, again, talking from personal experience, what I've seen for both small companies and very large organizations as well, is that a lot of businesses, unfortunately, don't have a lot of this data up to date. So they may not have ABNs or ACNs or what have you. So what CreditWatch does through this process, or through this integration process, is that we try to match them for the customer. So you may not think that is, I suppose, mission critical, but it is very important in terms of compliance. What I mean by that is that if you send a debt to a collector or take some court or something like that, you need to make sure that these things are in check. You need to cross your T's and dot your I's. So the name match there is a very effective way to kind of do this with ease, and I will show you that in the demonstration. One of the other things there is the enriched credit report. So again, I will show what this looks like in the demo, but what it does just kind of show is that in the credit report, we will also feed in through the MYOB with Xero information, which just kind of gives it that next layer of depth, or next layer of insight as well, which is great. This fourth point though is, I think, something that we as a business, I think it's kind of an underrated thing. I think it's really, really valuable, whereby CreditorWatch will automatically email a credit report for a new customer that's been added to MYOB and Xero. And going back to my previous point around the data analysis around businesses or people working for businesses that are wearing multiple hats, they may not have time to always jump back into CreditorWatch because they might be on the go, going between meetings, putting out fires elsewhere. So if we can just quickly push an email out to them with a credit report, they can quickly have a look on their phone, make sure that they're acceptable risk or that they're happy with it. Fantastic. They can trade with them with confidence and go about their day. So that's a very important point to mention. And then the high risk customer list is something that I talked about earlier with the data analysis, really around identifying and prioritizing who you're going to go with. And of course, if it's the high risk information that we're flagging there, that's going to be a number one priority to follow up on. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the demo. So benefits to small businesses more specifically. So of course, CreditorWatch is an online platform, so the ability to access it wherever you are, if you're in the office or working from home, which is really important these days, particularly for people in accounts and things like that. So being able to access it live just by jumping on the website is great. The further layer of insights in regards to including invoices, the bills, the sales revenue, these sorts of things just allows companies to kind of work more completely out of CreditorWatch, which I think is a great thing. But then the last point here, and I might sound like a broken record, as this is probably the third time I've mentioned it now, but time saved in identifying potential at-risk businesses in your ledger. At the end of the day, CreditorWatch's mission or aim is to help businesses across the country reduce their commercial risk and thus reducing bad debts. So that's why it's such an important piece to mention there. Benefits to everybody else. So we saw earlier that 20% of people on the call today don't use either MYOB or Xero. So you might be asking the question, well, what's the benefit for me? So I think there is still a really important point to kind of note with this, and that is the unique perspective that CreditorWatch gets from collecting this data. So, if 90% of businesses, small businesses, I should say, across the country are using MYOB and Xero and they're a CreditorWatch customer, because we have tens of thousands of customers, that data is being fed into our system. So, as I said, creates a very unique perspective. And on that third point there, small businesses are arguably find themselves not being paid first when there are credit issues with suppliers. And I think that's a very important point. So with that data coming in, and the best way I kind of understood it was, if I have my home loan, a car loan, and a phone bill, when I get paid, I'm certainly paying my home loan and my car loan. I'm not defaulting on my home loan, and similar with my car loan. If I am struggling financially or need a bit of extra cash, whatever it may be, I might be a couple of days late on my phone bill. And the same kind of concept or logic applies to the commercial space. If there is a supplier that I have that is mission critical to making my business successful, to be able to complete work, complete jobs, whatever it may be, so it's only logical that I'm going to pay them first. And that's why we see sometimes these smaller businesses being paid later. What that means for companies when they're assessing other businesses, is that data is feeding through our payment predictor and our payment rating. So if we're getting that information coming through, showing that they're not paying some of those smaller suppliers and they're paying them, say, 15 days late, 30 days late, whatever it may be, that then has an impact on whether or not you want to do business with them, because you can see that they're that they're not able to meet that commitment. So offering them 7-day terms, well, it's kind of pointless because they're not going to be able to meet that. So it's just about offering that enhanced level of insights when you're assessing potential debtors, and that's why this data is so crucial to not just small businesses, but really any business out there. So I'm going to go into a demo just quickly and show you what the integration actually looks like. Just before I do though, I just want to ask this quick question. Of those who do use MYOB and Xero, have you integrated your account thus far? There is an option for businesses that haven't, so just feel free to select that. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So, okay, so if, there is a portion of people that haven't. Of course, we know that there are businesses out there, or 20% on today's call, that don't have MYOB or Xero. So what I'll show you in this next slide is how to do it. So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. Just so that you know, for people on the call who may not be CreditorWatch customers as of yet, but are considering it, when you do sign up, we automatically do ask you, a few questions, and also what your accounting platform is. If you do, put in MYOB or Xero as your accounting platform, we will automatically look to integrate that for you straight away, and we will ask you. It takes about 60 seconds, so it's not a very time-intensive exercise, and straight away you're kind of out the gates running, which is great. For other businesses who perhaps never got around to it, or didn't want to for whatever reason, as I said, it isn't mandatory. These two links do allow you to integrate. It walks you through a step-by-step process. Probably takes 90 seconds instead of the 60 seconds. So it's not an intensive process. It's not a hard process to do. So feel free to save those links or screenshot that and jump on that if you'd like to. Alrighty. Let's jump into the platform. So I'm just going to jump over to the Creditwatch system. Here we go. Fantastic. All right. So hopefully everyone can see my screen, the browser. So what you can see here is the accounting package for Xero. So the interface itself is extremely similar. Just for today, we're just going to use Xero. So I'll talk about each page, and we'll go through each page in a moment, but just to give you a bit of a lay of the land, what you can see here is my summary page with my accounts receivable summary, DSO, etc. I'll talk about that in a moment. I've then got my high risk tab, which I touched on earlier. Businesses that I'm not monitoring, so we're going to flag those for you immediately. And what we're kind of seeing in 2022 is people wanting to really be across their existing customers. So for companies looking at this integration, the not monitoring section would be very, very relevant to you. Missing ABNs, where we try to align an ABN to businesses in your platform that don't have anything assigned against it. And then the top 10, which again, I'll touch on in a moment. So what's really important to know here is that all this information is being fed through your integration with MYOB or Xero. So what you can see is my total receivables, overdue, max outstanding, max account overdue, etc., etc. So if you think of these as buckets, if I wanted to view any one of these particular buckets, I could just simply click on that, open a new link, and view those accounts. Now, what's really important here is that if I wanted to go a little bit deeper and look at these accounts from a micro level or individual level, I could just simply click on that business, Walter Construction, take me straight to that credit report. I'll talk about the credit report in a moment. So as you can kind of tell, the interface is really designed for you to get to most places within 1 or 2 clicks, which is great. Again, we're trying to save time as much as possible. What we've got here is also our sales information. So looking at the last financial year and this financial year, we're also looking at the total outstandings from last financial to this financial. So we can really start to do a little bit of benchmarking, but more importantly, get a really good understanding as to where my accounts sit. And further to that, the last area we've got is regarding our age trial balance. So very similarly to the above here, these work in buckets or segments. And if I wanted to view any of these segments here, obviously I've got a lot of data in this account sitting at 90+ days. If I wanted to view those accounts, I could do so straight away and start looking at them individually. Now, where I personally see the integration being immensely valuable is with the high risk. So what we can see here in the high risk tab is we will flag the amount outstanding on the business. So in this example, Walton Construction, obviously I've got the ABN there as well. I've got my outstanding and my overdue amount. And what we're also going to flag here is the risk factors that are associated to that business. And this ties in back to what I was saying earlier around enabling businesses to identify and prioritize who they should be going after. Now, fair point in this scenario, they're under administration and currently being wound up. There's no kind of value in me calling the client to try and chase this debt. What I probably need to do is go and speak to the administrator and follow that process. So whether or not I'm a secured or unsecured creditor would obviously impact my ability to, or not ability, but my chances of getting something back. But we're flagging this already. So in terms of forwarding this to my team or me chasing it personally, I'm probably going to focus on something a bit more, I suppose, logical or relevant to me to be able to get something back. And that might be here, RA quality meets, where yeah, it's a bit less than the $30,000, but I know that there's a court action and a payment default registered against that business. So they're still trading, but they've had problems paying someone, or maybe a couple of people here. So what I might want to do is look at this business straight away, look at their credit report. If I want to just go straight to the defaults of the court actions, I can see that they're an impaired risk, so it's a very high risk, a very bad rating. If I wanted to go to the defaults, it takes me straight there. I can see that there's been a number of defaults lodged, and more importantly, a number of court actions. I want to get that debt paid ASAP, so I am making that a high priority for me. And moving forward, if I do get a chance to get that debt paid, I'm probably going to put them on COD, or at the very least, or actually not even very least, but very least put them on COD, or if not, perhaps not deal with them altogether. So this is a real life example in terms of, or an example in terms of how businesses do use the integration, and particularly with the high risk. The next section is in regards to the monitored entities. So what's important to note here is that we are flagging any of these businesses that we have outstanding or overdue amounts with, and if we're not monitoring them. As I kind of mentioned beforehand and at the beginning of the call, or sorry, the webinar, a key benefit or advantage CreditorWatch has is the ability to monitor companies for you. So think of CreditorWatch acting as a bit of a safety net, where you go about your day making sales, making sure the business is running. CreditorWatch sits in the background and will notify you if and when anything adverse happens that we can notify you on. So how that works is via an email that gets sent out once a day. So it's not designed to be intrusive or highly administrative, but it is there to flag those high risk events to you. If I wanted to add any of these businesses to my monitoring list, I just simply add them there. There we go, and that's going to add to my monitoring list, nice and easy, which is fantastic. If I wanted to add them all in, I could do so as well, which is great. The next section is around missing ABN. So this is an important piece from a compliance area, and it's certainly something which we see a lot of. So how this works, just so everybody's across it, is we try to match the details that you have in your Xero MYOB platform with the files that we have, with the ABNs that we have access to. So because we are linked with ASIC and ABR, we have access to all commercial credit reports in the country. And what we will do is that we will try to promote suggestions of what this business may be. So we have Boom FM here. I can see a bunch of businesses that have been flagged. Now, realistically, I can kind of eliminate a fair few of these straight away. So I know probably all of these here, because they're based in Queensland, New South Wales, or just those two states, and not Victoria, likely not the same, the right company. However, Boom Corp, it's in the kind of nearby postcode in Victoria, that might be it. So if I wanted to, I could view that business, or I could simply add it, assign the ABN to there if I wanted to, or what I could do, I could view the business and then look at the directors of that company to make sure that, if it's Helen or something like that, who's the person I've been dealing with, I can match the directors with the contact that I have. So it's very easy for me to understand who the business is and get the right information assigned to the record, which, as I mentioned earlier, in the long run is going to be very, very important. The last section here in regards to the integration just being month or time is in regard to the top 10 list. So what this flags here really simply is the top 10 accounts that are outstanding, the top 10 accounts that are overdue, and the oldest invoices. So we are going to flag them for you immediately, where you can see the total. And again, as kind of you've all already seen the system, if I wanted to view that individual report, I could just simply click on that report and do my due diligence, which is fantastic. So guys, that's pretty much it in regards to the integration itself. I didn't want to talk a lot about the individual credit report just because we didn't have enough time. But just quickly, for those who perhaps haven't used or seen Creditwatch or used us in quite some time, the report itself has a plethora of information, an abundance of information. So as you can see here, we're flagging, the risk rating, the number of defaults, the current status of the business straight away. We're flagging into we're plugged into ABR and ASIC to make sure that we've got the right details. We have our risk rating and benchmarking that against the industry, showing it over 12 months, which is great. And we've also got a hell of a lot of payment data coming through. So I'll actually just touch on this, given I mentioned it earlier. So this payment rating is the MYOB and Xero data coming through, along with our larger customers who upload their HR balance. That data is being fed in through here. So as I mentioned, we're sitting anywhere between 10 to 12 million trade lines. And what we can see here is this gives us some early indicators on how this business is paying their bills, right? So to be fair, there were a fair few defaults on this company, but what we can also see is that their payment rating is marked as an E. And when we look at this entity and how they're paying their bills, pretty much 25 days overdue ever since the beginning of the year. And when you benchmark that against the industry, even if this company didn't have any defaults on them, I would look at this as a high risk or potential high risk. And I would factor in two things. A, my trading terms on how I would trade with them. So if I'm going to give them, say, 15 days or 14 days or 7 days, 30 days end of month, and then also the credit limit I would give them. Further to that point is that you can see the amount of information that we have on these businesses. So what you can see here is that, the average balance on this company, the number of trade lines we have on this entity, et cetera, et cetera. So this is something that I think, bureaus is becoming really, really important for bureaus and for people who use bureaus, because this is generally going to be those early warning signs before you see certainly administrations, but court actions, defaults, things like that. Payment data is going to become a very powerful tool. There's a lot of other information on these reports. We can look at the director, so we can do due diligence on them, not just the company. We can look at the address, plug into Google, shareholding structure, you name it. So if there are any questions or further, people want more information on the reports itself, what I would suggest is there's a couple of things you could do. You can get in contact with us directly, the number's on the screen, or reach out via email, or just jump on our website. There's an abundance of information on there. Feel free to sign up to an account as well. You can speak to one of our team. We are based all the way down the East Coast, and we can help you out. But as I said, maybe your first point is to jump on the website and do some research. There's a lot of information on there that is made readily available. So guys, thank you for your time. That kind of brings us to the end of today's session. Hopefully you guys did find it insightful, valuable. Everybody just want to say have a Merry Christmas, have a great break. I'm sure we've all deserved it. Here's looking forward to a better 2022, hopefully, or a less restricted 2022. Thanks for your time, guys.